Hello, job seekers and students in this class. This video is called Introducing JavaScript Objects, and what we're going to talk about very quickly, this is a very simple one, is just a different way that you can write variables in JavaScript that is neater and tidier. That's really most of what it comes down to. Okay, neatness and tidiness, these are things that I love. They're things that I teach my infant son. He's a toddler now, I guess, and he puts things away very well. So this is good. I like to be organized. Okay, so as before, we are going to be doing some programming in our program. That kind of makes a decent amount of sense. And before I do that, I actually forgot to commit my changes from the previous stuff. So I'm going to go to GitHub Desktop quickly. And this is from the previous video. I'm just going to say, learned about changing variables. Double exclamation mark, because that was a really good one, I thought. So learned about changing variables. That was the changes that I made in the previous video, and I want to put them into my repository. So commit to master, done, back to Atom. Okay, now for the purposes of this video, I'm going to get rid of this acceleration thing here. I'm going to get rid of it here, just so that our thing is ever so slightly simpler. So now we're just back to a program where, if you recall, I'll go over and look at it, a circle, I just reloaded, a circle goes from left to right across the screen at a constant speed of 2 pixels. Now, the thing about this program, which is perfectly good, there's nothing wrong with this program, it's just that it could be slightly improved. And the thing about it that we should notice as programmers is that we have these 4 variables here, circle x, circle y, circle speed, and circle size, that are all about the same thing, right? They're all about the circle that's on the screen. But there are 4 separate variables. They're completely separate things from each other, each with its own number. And that works, but there is a thing in JavaScript called the JavaScript Object that would enable us to make our program just that little bit extra neat. A little bit extra neater. Neater, much neater. So the way that we write a JavaScript object, and this is the thing that we're here to learn today, is just a little bit different from how we've been doing variables so far. So I'm going to write it just down here, just after the variables. And what I'm doing right now is I'm going to replace the variables with this new thing. So the first thing I write is let, because I'm still just creating a variable. This is just going to be a special variable that's going to represent the circle itself. Okay? And for that reason, the name I'm going to give it is just circle. Okay? So I'm making a variable called circle, and I'm going to put something into it, just like normal. I want to store something inside the circle, but instead of storing a number inside this variable, I'm going to store all of the numbers inside this one single variable. Okay? And to do that, I use a JavaScript object. The way that you know you're using a JavaScript object is that after the assignment, so this equals sign here, after we write that, we have curly brackets. So curly brackets are a huge part of a lot of programming languages. It's a good idea to make friends with them. So here I used curly bracket. Curly brackets are the ones above the square brackets on your keyboard. On an English language keyboard. I believe it's a bit different on French keyboards. So when I wrote the first curly bracket, you can see that Atom immediately put in the closing one, and that's actually really useful. So as soon as I type one curly bracket, I get the other one for free, and what I normally do now is I hit return when I'm making a JavaScript object. So it's a little bit like a function, right? In a function we see set up here, it's got these curly brackets to say what are the lines of code that should be run by this function. So create canvas here, and inside these curly brackets we've got background, we change circle X, and we draw an ellipse. Those are the things that the function does. For a JavaScript object, we use these curly brackets for a similar thing, which is that we want to say what's inside the circle. What things does a circle know? What information is in there? And the way that we write it is very, very similar to just the variables above. So the first thing that we know a circle should know is its x position. And because we're inside the circle, this is things that the circle knows, we don't need to write circle x. We can just write x. The circle knows its x position. Sorry, I went ahead of myself there. Unlike when we're doing variables, we don't use the equal sign. We use a colon. So we write x colon and then the value that goes into x. So a circle has got inside its curly brackets that define what it knows. It knows about x, and it knows that x is 0. And it knows that x is 0 because of our little colon there. But it knows more than this, right? It knows also, and so we write a comma, because this is the next thing it knows, and a return. It also knows its y position, and we can see that its y position is 250 if we're copying the variables up here. So y colon 250, comma. It also knows its size, so I can write size colon 200. And it knows its speed, speed colon 2. I can put a comma at the end of the list if I want to, or not. It doesn't really matter. Because this is technically an assignment, I usually try to put a semicolon here at the end of my my assignment, because all of this is just one thing, right? I happen to have put it on multiple lines to make it more readable, but this is all just one instruction, setting up my circle. Okay, so that's a JavaScript object. That is literally what it is. The main thing that we have to just get used to is this different way of writing things, right? So we create a single variable, so we write let, and then our single variable that's going to know multiple things about itself. So this single thing knows that this is my thing called circle, my variable called circle. I should not say thing. And I'm assigning it a JavaScript object. We know it's a JavaScript object immediately because we see these curly brackets around the information inside it. And then we have a list separated by commas of the different pieces of information that the circle knows. Now what these are called are property value pairs. So x is called a property of the circle, or the object that is representing the circle. So x is a property, y is a property, size is a property, and speed is a property. They're basically like the variable names within this JavaScript object, right? You can see they're highlighted a special color. And to say what's inside a property, we use the colon, and then we write the value. So x, the property, colon, has inside it 0, the value, and then a comma, because we're going to give another property. Y, the property, has inside it 250, comma, size, the property, has inside it 200, comma, and speed has 2. Unlike with variables, you cannot have a property with no value inside it. I can't say it has no size. That just doesn't work. Your program won't run. So we always have to put values in, but that's fine because, as I've been saying, it's better if you always put values in, right? So now, in our program, we have this object. It's called circle, and it knows its x, its y, its size, and its speed. It's kind of cool. They're all in one place now. And the idea is that they replace all of these values. We don't need these variables anymore, so I'm going to delete them. Bam. So now we just have two variables, the background shade, which is 0, and circle, which is a JavaScript object containing 4 properties that define how the circle works. So that's perfect. The only other thing we obviously now need to know is how to use this, because we can see that down below in our program, on these 2 lines here, we're still using the old variables, and they don't exist anymore. So rather than saying circle x, we want to somehow say use the x inside my circle variable, right? Because that's the thing that contains the value that I want. And to do that, I still write the name of the variable. Now that name is just circle. And then to say that I want to use the x property specifically, I do a dot and then the property name. So circle.x. Yep, same thing here. Circle is the variable that contains my object with all of the information, and I want its speed, so I say circle.speed. So then I get circle.x plus equals circle.speed, which, as we know, is the same as circle.x is assigned circle.x plus circle.speed. So we're just replacing the variable names by accessing the properties inside the object. Same thing here, circle x is now known as circle.x. That's the property inside the circle variable that has the x value. Same thing for y, circle.y, and same thing for size, circle.size. Okay? Now, this is just a matter of reorganizing our code, right? The program itself doesn't run any differently. If we go back and look and reload, the circle does its same thing. It just moves across the screen. So we haven't changed, again, how the program works. We've changed how the program looks, and we've changed how it's organized. Okay? So we've created a JavaScript object full of properties. Each one is written as a name, a colon, and a value, and then a comma. And we use them by saying the name of the variable with the object, a dot to say we want to access one of its properties, and then the name of the property. So circle.x gives us this property. Circle.speed gives us this property. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, the main thing, as you can imagine what the main thing is, that I love them. But the main reason that I love them is that they're a better way of organizing because they group related things together explicitly. So rather than 4 variables that are separate, defining the 4 main qualities of our circle, all of the qualities of our circle are inside one variable. And that is just better in terms of thinking about what this program does. Specifically, it really enables us to think that in our program there is just a thing called circle. And that thing, as we know, if I reload, is this thing here, right? It's the thing that moves across the screen. And this is one of the things in our program that we can see. And we can think about it just as a single entity. It's a single object that has a specific behavior and way of doing things. So it really helps us to think about programming in terms of separate objects that might have a lot of different properties rather than a whole lot of variables that all relate to the same thing. The other good thing about using these objects right away, and I suggest that we do, is that they will help us as we prepare for this thing called object-oriented programming, which is a specific way of programming we'll talk about in a few weeks. Okay? So the main takeaway that I want you to have here is that if you're declaring a whole lot of variables and they're all about the same thing, such as this circle, you should be using an object instead. You should be using an object with properties instead of those variables. That's really it, okay? And that's it, JavaScript objects. So JavaScript objects are, I think, really pretty fantastic. I'm a huge fan. I'm going to use them in all of the code moving forwards, and I'll point out times when they don't make sense, but you should see them as your very good friend from now on. Okay, see you in the next video.